Hello and welcome back to the Championship Crowd podcast. I'm Chris Durkin and as usual joined by Adam Harvey. We've got a busy pod as usual to get through. We've got midweek games in the Championship coming up this week and of course the South Wales derby next Saturday that I'm looking forward to previewing later. First of all, let's come to you, Adam. How's your week been?
Yeah, no, another busy week, and obviously Norwich have extended their run to 8 straight wins with that massive 2-1 victory yesterday against Sheffield Wednesday, and yeah, it's been another good week, and it's looking very interesting at the top of the Championship.
They have done 8 straight wins since that bit of a poor run, and then no worries at all now. 8 wins, looks like you're flying. We'll get back onto Norwich. I'm happy, of course. Swansea back to winning ways with a win against Luton. We'll talk about those games, but let's start with this Friday night game. So Brentford away to Blackburn, and Brentford won 1-0 there.
Yeah, obviously Ivan Toney's penalty was enough to seal this game. It was I think more of a game that you could probably look at it and say it was the refereeing decisions that dictated the result to an extent. Obviously Fosu was brought down. Was it a penalty? Was it not? I don't know. It's a difficult one because I think there was contact. Was there enough contact? I don't know. It's such a difficult one to call, but obviously get the penalty. And then Blackburn were a bit unlucky. I think Blackburn have played quite well this week. Obviously got the point against you guys, and I thought like from the highlights I saw, they looked quite decent. And against Brentford, obviously had a few decisions go against them. That Bradley Dack, unfortunately, is injured again, who's arguably their best player. Yeah, not the greatest of tackles by Raya. Not sure he knew he was there, but at the same time, he did look over his shoulder and, yeah, he's made contact. Is it a penalty? Is it not a penalty?
I think it is. I think it is. I think Brentford got lucky. Of course, I'm going to say that as a Swansea fan. But I think the first one, like the amount of stick we've been given for the penalties that we've had over the last few weeks, if they want to give us stick, then surely that's a bit controversial. A bit of contact, but is he not running into the leg? Oh, I don't know about that. And then I think there was the early one in the second half when they got the play got pulled down for Blackburn. Sky said that was a penalty. They thought that was a penalty, but they didn't think the co-commenters thought the last one was a penalty. When I'm thinking there's a good 3 meters away of Reyes from the ball before he's trying to kick it. Blackburn striker's coming in. He's about to nick the ball. He's got the pace. So he's going to get it before him. Brentford keeper knows that, steps across him, not going towards the ball, but stepping across him. How that's not a penalty, how Sky don't think it's a penalty, I have no idea. I guess it is Brentford TV most of the Sky Sports. They seem to like their local team. But let's not talk about that because you never know, I might have a future job in Sky. So let's not go on about Sky's co-commentators. But I did think that was a bit lucky on Brentford's half. But Blackburn, very good performance. And they played really well against us in midweek with a 1-1 draw. And they were the better team, I have to admit. We didn't get going and Blackburn dominated the play. I thought we should have pressed them higher. I think on the ball at the back, they didn't look that strong, but we just seemed to like allowing them to have the ball. But yeah, Blackburn played really well against us and then played really well against Brentford.
Yeah, obviously, say fair play to Blackburn. You know, a bit unlucky, but obviously they're mid-table. They're comfortable this season. Probably wished they were looking for those playoff places. They've got some good players in certain areas, but unfortunately not enough for this season. But moving to Swansea, obviously played Blackburn during the week, but they played Luton on the early kickoff on Saturday. Managed to pick up the 1-0 victory. I mean, I saw part of this game. I thought Luton second half were coming on to you, quite strong. You had a few chances here and there. How do you analyse that one, Chris?
Yeah, I think Sky probably regretting picking us for all these games. We'll come on to the next games coming up this week, but we're not really that great to watch at the moment. 1-0 win, early goal. Good break, good play from Ayew to draw the defenders away, and great play from Danda to go past the defender and then past the Horahan who tucks it in. Except from that, we didn't really create much. They were the better team. They could have scored a few, and that was a bit unlike us. Usually we're good at starting out these games. Obviously we did 1-0 victory, but we did give them chances. There was a minor penalty shout when Joel went into head of the ball and then maybe bars their striker away, but I think the referee's done well not to give it there. But luckily, there was no penalty this time for Swansea. There was 4 out of 4 games, but then Saturday brought an end to that. So 1-0 win for Swansea, but elsewhere Watford won as well. So everyone was winning away to Cardiff. What do you think of that game, Adam?
Yeah, obviously Watford have been on quite a good little run recently. I think I've worked out their points per game in the last 8 is 2.63, which maintain that till the end of the season, and they'll be looking at a top 2 place. But one thing I'd probably say is they got a little bit of luck there with the winner. Obviously, a free kick by Messina, and I don't know what's going through the Cardiff goalkeeper's head there. He's flapped at it and let it in. I mean, TalkSport, I don't know if you heard that, but they were bigging up this free kick as if it's the best free kick they've ever seen. And yeah, I don't really see that. I think it's a massive fluke. And don't get me wrong, I thought Watford were quite solid in this game. And to win away at Cardiff is never an easy place to go, especially under Mick McCarthy, because they've been on a very good run since he's been there. But yeah, that's a big win for Watford.
I didn't hear that TalkSport one. So they were saying it was an amazing strike or what?
Yeah, I mean, I saw it on Twitter because I was watching Soccer Saturday, and after the game, I just went on Twitter, as you do, and I had a few people put in what TalkSport on about Watford's free kick, and I was like, what TalkSport said about it. Honestly, the commentary, you'd think that he scored a probably like 50-yard screamer to the top corner. Yeah.
I tell you what, like, he did hit it hard. He smashed it hard. But what is the keeper doing? Are Cardiff thinking, well, Barnsley picking up points against Bournemouth, there's going to be a bit of too much of a gap there. Let's let this our rivals not get promoted, and let's let in a goal. Well, what happened there? I'm sorry, but what is the keeper doing? As whoever was in the game when the Sky Sports Studios, he the guy waved at it. He just waved his hand away from the ball, and I have no idea what he's doing. But controversial. Let's check his bank accounts after that. I just think, what is he doing? Can he not just stand still? At least could you put your head on the ball? He's a keeper. That's his job, to keep it out. What happened?
Yeah, it is a baffling decision, and you've got to look at there'll always be claims of match fixing on that one, because that was a very controversial goal, and it's a massive goal in sort of the playoff and the automatic promotion picture, because Watford only got a draw in that, then obviously it could have been a very different story.
Could have been a different story indeed, but they did get 3 points. So that meant all the 3 fighting for that second place automatic promotion got the wins, but Norwich also extended it as well, didn't they, Adam?
Yeah, not the greatest performance. First half, Norwich was struggling massively. It was an ex-Norwich striker, actually, Jordan Rhodes, a massive name in the 2018-19 promotion. He scored some really vital goals, and he came back to haunt Norwich. A little bit of luck with the free kick, obviously a deflection, and it kind of falls into his path, and he puts it in the back of the net. Give Sheffield Wednesday the lead, and you think that might breed a little bit of confidence. Obviously, Darren Moore had a full week to work with the players this week, where he hadn't had that since being appointed there. So, people thinking, has he worked his magic here? And Norwich just weren't clicking. Cantwell was very poor first half. Buendia didn't quite look sort of on the ball and on the pace as he usually does. And Pukki wasn't really making the runs he always does. So coming into the second half, you're thinking Norwich have got to up their game here, because the bottom, obviously, the 3 sides below them have all picked up wins. And even though you can look at Norwich's gap and say it's quite comfortable, it wouldn't have been as comfortable had Norwich not won this game. And then 2 pieces of brilliance, really. A really good finish by Pukki into the top corner, and Cantwell with a really nice finish on his weak foot into the top corner. And yeah, that, for me, with 10 games to go, I think that's probably the one that you can arguably say clinches promotion.
I think you mentioned earlier when we were speaking, Daniel Farke, after the game, for the first time in his post-match media talk, he said that you probably are safe in those top 2 now. And it is a great win. Good goals from the Norwich players. Everyone was banging on and saying amazing goals. I think they're both good finishes, but nothing nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing on the level of Horan or Grimes' finishes I've seen this season. But fair play to Norwich. Good strikes there. But it was a shaky start. I was getting a bit happy. I was thinking, could there be a way Norwich slip up? But no, you've done this previously in the season. You've responded well in the second half, left it fairly late. But no fears. Looks like you're going up.
Yeah, and obviously that's Pukki. He scored his 50th championship goal in 75 appearances. So that's 2 championship goals in every 3 games, which that statistic really is, at this level, is a very difficult statistic to meet, I think. I think he's one of the, I don't know if he's the fastest player to ever do that, or he's certainly up there. That's a good little stat for you.
On 21 goals this season, that's 5 off Ivan Toney, though, on 26. Can you see him catching him for the Golden Boot late Friday for Pukki?
Probably not. I think he'll be second behind Toney. I think Toney's had an exceptional season, although you can say a lot of his goals come from the penalty spot. However, a penalty is still a goal, so on that account, Toney is the top goal scorer. So can't argue.
He is. So we'll just run through the table quickly. So Norwich on 79 points. That's after 36 games. Watford on the same amount of games, 69 points. Swansea behind on goal difference, with a goal difference of 20 compared to Watford's 23. With Brentford 3 points behind Swansea. Both Swansea and Brentford have a game in hand on Watford, though. So it's looking close there with the 2 places only up for grabs for promotion to the Premier League. Of course, the playoffs, though, and it was a big game in the playoffs. Barnsley drew in the week against Derby, but they responded for winning away from home against Bournemouth. 3-2 victory. What a game, Adam. What a result for Barnsley.
I mean, obviously, Mike came on here last week and was talking about Barnsley and saying he would be happy. Realistically, most Barnsley fans would have been happy with 4 points this week, but probably the reverse way. I think most fans would have expected the win against Derby at home and probably would have taken a draw away at Bournemouth. They've done it the other way, and ultimately it's enough to really put a nice gap now between themselves and Bournemouth, and they just look like they're flying, don't they? I mean, was it 8 wins, 1 draw now in their last 9? I think they're unbeaten in their last 12 or 11. It's something like that. So they just look full of confidence. I mean, they keep bringing players off the bench. They score goals. Carlton Morris, I mean, ex-Norwich youth product. I think that's now, I don't know what to say, 5 or 6 goals he's now scored already, which that's the reason. Like, they've just got players in every position they can bring off the bench who just look hungry. They look like they want to be playing in the Premier League next season, and you can't argue with that. But Bournemouth, that's a more damaging result for them, and I think that's going to mean they have to realistically put a really good run together now in these last 10 games, starting against you guys actually this week.
I do think Bournemouth, I still think they're players that they've got the players. They're probably still going to push for that playoffs. We know, like, maybe only 3 weeks ago, we were talking about the playoffs and we're saying those top 6 sides. I think Charlie came on, the QPR fan, was saying he thinks they will stay the same. And we agreed with him. But obviously Barnsley have managed to get this run together and now up there. And it is changing around. And I wouldn't be surprised to see another change before the end of the season. And with that being, it could be something like Reading getting drawn out of the playoffs because they drew 1-1 on the weekend. What did you think of that game?
Yeah, I think Reading obviously had won the 3 previous games before that. So is a point away at Forest then a bad result? Maybe not, because 10 points from the last 12 available isn't a bad record. The only thing that's worth noting is that Reading have some really difficult fixtures in these last 10 now coming. I think they've got Norwich and Swansea and Barnsley and a few other sides that, you know, are fighting at the top. And the only thing you can say is that because Bournemouth and Cardiff aren't really performing again these last sort of couple of games, they might have enough in the tank to keep in those top places. But it's just a little bit of inexperience with Reading. I think it's a lot of players that are young who haven't done it before, and that's going to be interesting come the end of the season, whether that's like something that's going to hinder them in terms of trying to secure a playoff place.
Yeah, and I think we've also got to take into consideration that start of the season, that if they didn't have the, I know they did, but if they didn't have that amazing start to the season when they were a good fair amount of points ahead of everyone else, that if you look at points per game since then, they would probably be around a mid-table team. So of course, they've actually got their last before the draw on the weekend. They won their last 3 games before that. But it could be one of those interesting things. They might start to slip down whilst you see the other teams coming up. One of those teams, could you see Middlesbrough maybe putting themselves in there as a late chance? We previewed last week saying Stoke versus Middlesbrough, whoever wins this could be the team that could push up. Middlesbrough did, and they did it convincingly, 3-0 victory.
Middlesbrough are just so inconsistent, aren't they? I mean, they've had some really good results this season. They picked up good wins against the likes of Swansea, and obviously even that result on the weekend, big 3-0 victory over Stoke, who are a good, well-drilled side on the whole. But yeah, I think it's that gap. Is it a 7 or 8 point gap now to Barnsley? And can you see them overturning that in 10 games? I struggle to see Barnsley losing 3 more games than Middlesbrough between now and the end of the season, and that obviously also involves Cardiff also dropping points and Bournemouth dropping points as well. So I just think it's too far fetched, but they've definitely built a squad. They're ready for next season. I think that's probably where they'll be targeting. Neil Warnock will be looking at that. I think he signed a new contract for next season. Don't know if this week or the week before. So he's obviously looking at maybe finishing one of his managerial careers with a promotion with Middlesbrough.
Yeah, so it is 8 points off Reading and Barnsley, who are both on 61 points. But I do think they did have a good fair amount of good win, though. They did bring in a few players that could project them onto a late run and towards the end of the season. Could be something similar to Barnsley. And we know those teams that come up with a late push into those playoffs tend to be the teams that are going up in the playoffs because they're the form sides. So you never know, they might be able to mount it, but it's just one of those things. It's the Championship. You just can't call it. So they could do it. Likewise, Cardiff and Bournemouth could do it, despite mentioning their defeats. Will they be able to challenge Reading or Barnsley?
I don't know. I would probably go as far to say the top 6 now will not change. I mean, obviously, we've said that before, and it has. But I just think that gap, Barnsley look unstoppable. And Reading, I just think the fact they've got that gap already there, and if they've got a few sort of winnable games here and there, probably will have enough just on the basis that those sides below. I mean, Bournemouth look shot of any confidence whatsoever. And Cardiff, again, that gap's just a tiny bit too big in my eyes. But the Championship's the Championship, and we love it because it's completely unpredictable and anything could happen between now and the end of the season.
Exactly. I'll run through it now. And as we're saying, it will probably change towards the end of the season. Reading 61, Barnsley 61, Bournemouth then 56, Cardiff 54, Middlesbrough 53. Will it stay the same? I don't think so. But you just don't know, do you? What you don't know is, could Wickham pull off an amazing escape? I highly doubt it. They did win 1-0 to Preston on the weekend.
Yeah, massive win. A good header from, I think it's Tafazoli. I think that's how you pronounce it. Really good goal. And a massive win. And what I will say is they've got 2 big games this week. They've got a game against Barnsley and a game against Coventry. Now, if Wickham can come out of this week with 6 points, they've got every single chance in the world of staying up this season. On the other hand, don't come out with 6 points. I just think that's game up for them. But fair play, big result, and they're keeping themselves in it, and we write them off, and they go and prove us wrong by picking up a win. So fair play to them.
Yeah, good win. I guess Preston, they're not really playing for anything, so that may have played into the result. But amazing result for Wickham. A team that could get drawn back into those bottom 3 is Birmingham. 3-0 defeat against Bristol City on the weekend.
Yeah, also reports that Aita Karanka is going to lose his job, which is probably not undeserved. I think he's struggling there with a team that just looks completely deflated. They just look like they've given up already. I mean, his post-match interview, he was shrugging his shoulders at everything. He just looks completely disinterested. And Birmingham, the concern is, okay, they're above the drop zone at the moment, but Rotherham have 4 games in hand. So I think that's probably going to play into their favour. And Birmingham's home form is awful, which if you're going to stay up in any division, you need very solid home form. Birmingham, I think, have the worst in the division. So that's just going to bode for relegation in my eyes. I just don't see how they're going to stay up. I don't think there's another 3 worse teams in that league than them. So I think a lot depends on the appointment. There's talks it's going to be Tony Pulis. Would he keep them up? I mean, he's got a good record, but is he going to? I mean, okay, the football's not going to be pretty that he's going to come in and play. It might be enough, but I think the 4 games in hand for Rotherham is the factor in that.
Yeah, and he was manager at Sheffield Wednesday early in the season. It clearly didn't work out there. We kind of discussed it a little bit last week with Mike. But you think, will he want to take that job? Like, is Tony Pulis is a bit of a risk. He doesn't want to get a bad dent to his managerial success previously. Taking on a hard job, I think, with Rotherham definitely got those games in hand. They could easily come into it. But it was Rotherham's game in hand. They've got games in hand because their game got cancelled because COVID against Coventry. And that would have been a big one, wouldn't it, down there, Adam?
Yeah, obviously we previewed that to a fair extent last week with Mike, and that was probably one of the bigger games of the weekend if it would have gone ahead, but obviously it didn't. I think what's notable is that Paul Warne is not going to be in the dugout for their 2 games this week against Watford and Bristol City. So that's not going to help them because, he's a big motivator for that team. He's sort of part of the togetherness of that squad that if they're going to stay up, it will be based on just squad togetherness and this unity they've got down there and this belief that they will stay up. And I wouldn't write them off at all. But as I say, the only problem I would have is the fact they're going to have games crammed in everywhere. Their games are going to be like every few days they're going to have a game. And as Mike said, their squad is so small. Like they've got such a small squad. They've got no depth. So get a few injuries. I don't know how that's going to play out for them, in all honesty.
Yeah, they're literally going to be playing midweek and then weekend till the end of the season. Their last game was that amazing win against Sheffield Wednesday away from home, winning 2-1 on the 3rd of March. And it is going to be a big break to then come back into football, especially if some of the players did suffer from COVID-19. As you say, no manager as well for the next 2 games. It's going to be a hard one. But with those games in hand, only 3 points off Birmingham, but they've got those 3 games in hand. So if they mount a win, maybe against the likes of low league teams such as Coventry and stuff like that, and we're going to preview their upcoming games in a bit, they could pull off an escape there. Another team that could get drawn back in is Derby, probably. They've just lost it. They've been doing amazing under Rooney. Last 5 games, no wins. So they've really taken a dip now. And defeat on the weekend. What happened there, Adam?
Yeah, obviously a 1-0 defeat against Millwall in arguably one of the most dull games of the weekend from what Sky was saying. Nothing really happened. Millwall set up, got the goal, and that was game up. And Derby 1 win in their last 7. And that's concerning. I mean, they've only got 2 other draws as well. And I looked at their sort of fixtures they've coming up, and again, they've got some really difficult games in there. And I think the fact that Birmingham are so woeful, and I think the fact that Rotherham have a lot of games in hand, that means they're going to be playing quite regularly. I think Derby will be okay. But at the same time, they could do with a win sometime this week just to calm the nerves a little bit, because it could get towards that stage with 2 or 3 games to go where they have a chance of being relegated and then anything can happen and they could see themselves playing in League One next year, which they don't want to be doing that.
Yeah, I think Derby will be fine there. Another team that Huddersfield look fine now with a away win against QPR as well. And that probably wraps it up down the lower league. So we've got Wickham on 26, Sheffield Wednesday on 28, Rotherham on 32, Birmingham, who we think could get drawn in there, but could be changing their manager, on 35 points. Key to note that Rotherham have 3 games in hand on them. Sheffield Wednesday have a 1 game in hand on them. Coventry, 38 points, still down there, and Derby on 39 points.
We're gonna play a little game. Obviously, some of you listeners who have been listening for a few weeks now will know that we play this game called Case for Promotion or Case for the Playoffs, depending on which team we have on. And obviously, we didn't play it last week because we had Mike on, but this week it's Chris's turn. He didn't have a turn in the first week, and he was very harsh on marking on me, and I want to get my revenge on that. So we're going to put him into the hot seat here. Going to have 30 seconds to give us the best case for why Swansea are going to finish second behind Norwich because they're not going to win the league. So based on that, Chris, you're not allowed to say Cooper. You're not allowed to say Connor Roberts, who is the second best right back behind Max Aarons in this division. and you're not allowed to say Swansea City. You have 30 seconds to prove to me why you're going to finish second. Are you ready, Chris?
I was born ready.
Not nervous at all?
Not nervous, mate. You're going to nail it.
All right, I believe you. All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Well, the Jack Army are going to go up. Then we're going to be going back to the Premier League. We've proven it before in 2011. We know how it's done. We're going to do it this season. I can't mention him, so I'll say that Wales' amazing right wing back. He's just unbelievable this season, going up and down, getting into the box, scoring goals, making assists. Love him to bits. He's doing really well, but we've got many other players. Andre, are you? We're going up. Was that 3 seconds?
Yeah.
What? That went so quick. Oh.
That's what I'm saying. Under pressure, Chris. That's the pressure, gauge that you have to deal with. I dealt with it the first week, and
no, I think it's more just the fact that there's so many reasons why Swansea are going up that could have spent hours on it.
I don't know about that, but what am I gonna grade you, Chris? What am I gonna grade you? I mean, what was it you gave me again? I think you did mark me up a little bit, didn't you?
I think I gave you like 7.
Yeah, I'll go with 7.5, Chris. I'll go with 7.5.
Oh, very humble, Adam. Yeah, I think I was all right. I think could have got better. I think I talked a bit too much, tried to get a bit too much about Connor Roberts in there without saying his name. But there would have been so much to mention. I guess our defensive record this season's been amazing. Mark Gurhey at the centre of that, Ryan Bennett playing a key part. Was about to get onto Andre Ayew. Didn't really have enough time about him, but he's been there. He's done that. He's got the experience. I don't think he's been amazing this year. I've got to admit, I don't think he's been a standout player for us, but he's just one of those players that's on there. He's a massive leader. He's got an ability that's far beyond the Championship. Hopefully, he'll play into next season. And I guess the added additions of Horahan. I know I've spoken recently, not sure, except from his goals and assists and set pieces off the ball, not that amazing recently, but we've got those players and I still think we're going up. I just wanted to show how I could have done with like a few extra minutes. But Adam, mate, there's so many games to preview. We're going to come to the South Wales derby. I am so excited to preview that one. But let's talk about the midweek games. There's another big game for Swansea before that. Bournemouth. Are we going to win that?
I mean, this is massive for both teams for different reasons. I think obviously Swansea, this is massive because the result in this sets them up for that South Wales derby. Lose this, the pressure, becomes even bigger for that South Wales derby. They don't want to be losing 2 games in a week. Alternatively, Bournemouth look shot of all confidence at the moment. They're nowhere near secure anywhere in the playoffs because they've now got that gap to Barnsley. So a lot depends on the reaction. I think, will I expect Bournemouth to have a reaction? I think they will. I think they're going to have to react. But at the same time, Swansea are grinding out results at the moment. So it's a difficult one because neither side are really what I deem playing well. I think both sides have played better earlier in the season. And yeah, I don't know. I think if I was going to sit here, I would probably say it's a draw, which we've all said before, when it's hard to pick a team to win, you go for a draw. But I actually think it'll be a draw away from home. I think you drew 0-0, didn't you, early in the season?
Yes, at home. And that was probably one of the last games in terms of the drenched pitch that was just really muddy. Then obviously we got resurfaced, but it was very bad conditions that day.
Yeah, so I don't know what you think of that, Chris. How do you view that one?
Yeah, I'm not really looking for. Obviously, I'm looking forward to it. It's a Swansea game, but I'm not really looking forward to it at the same time. I think it's going to be a challenging game, especially before the South Wales derby. Not really the ideal game that we want to be playing. Bournemouth defeat against Barnsley, and I don't think that's a good thing. I think they're going to come out and they're going to say we have to win now. Might play in our hands, I guess. We've been solid defensively, so we might then be able to pick them out on the break or get a goal from a set piece. But we haven't been playing well recently. Like there's no beating around the bush about it. We've been playing poor. We haven't been looking like a top side that's third in the league. But at the same time, I look at it that we've been getting results, and we're still doing that. And we know we can play better than this. Steve Cooper knows we can play better than this. So we need to find our form going into these 2 big games. But I do think Bournemouth could be a challenging one. And I'm going for a draw as well. I don't think we're going to win that. I think it's going to be 1-1 this time out.
Fair play, Chris. Obviously, another big game also on Tuesday night, which is a 7 o'clock kickoff, is at the New York Stadium. Rotherham are finally back in action, and they have Watford coming to them, obviously off the back of that big win on Saturday. Who's going to win that, Chris? Is it going to be the relegation strugglers or the promotion pushers?
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, no manager. Rotherham, it's going to be a challenging one. And it's two ways to look at it. You could be saying they've had a rest, so they haven't played since the 3rd of March. They've had a rest. But is it a rest if you've been having COVID-19? Not so much. It depends what players, because we don't know which players tested positive. We don't know those ins and outs details. So you never know, they could come out firing. I think some teams have benefited from the breaks, some teams haven't. It's one of those games you can't really call, but I think you can because the golfing class. But I have kept on mentioning it. I don't think Watford are that amazing away from home. I know they picked up a result against Cardiff. But they will win, won't they? 3-1 Watford.
Yeah, I would have to say I'd agree. I think despite the fitness aspect, you could say that, Rotherham haven't been playing games, but at the same time, that's not match fitness, is it? That's a few weeks off. And yeah, for that reason, I can't see anything but a Watford win. I think Watford will win that 3-0.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I guess, yeah, going back through because Rotherham seem to just don't score many or concede many. What was it previously? It was like the previous 5 is maybe a 1-goal deficit in all of them. Yeah, maybe even just a 2-0 Watford. But we'll wait and see. So that's Tuesday night. There's other games, though, of course, in the week. Wednesday, we're picking out the 2 big ones as Birmingham versus Reading as one of them. Probably big, both ends there, Adam.
Yeah, massive at both ends. Obviously, Birmingham are, at the moment, if they don't soon turn this round, they are going to start to see themselves really up against it come the sort of end of the season. Reading, obviously, they could do with a win. Obviously, got the draw at the weekend. They'd be slightly disappointed they didn't win that game. Obviously, they were behind, but they'd expect to win away at Forest. So you could probably say it's a tricky one. I mean, Birmingham, their home form's awful, which I've highlighted on this podcast many a time before. They had a little bit of a resurgence, didn't they? They beat Sheffield Wednesday and they beat someone else. I can't remember who, but they also lost 3-0 to Bristol City at the weekend at home. And I would see this going a similar way. I think Reading will win that 2-0.
I think Birmingham have been poor, but it obviously depends on if they do manage to get rid of their manager in time, that they might then have that boost, trying to play for positions for a new manager or just trying to just stay up. Reading haven't drew on the weekend, so it could be an interesting one, but I think Reading will be able to win that one. But lower down as well, Sheffield Wednesday, Huddersfield. Huddersfield, we mentioned, probably are safe. They're away to Wednesday on Wednesday.
Yeah, when Sheffield Wednesday were very good, yesterday, and I thought they were a tad unlucky actually against Norwich, but they just can't get a win, can they? That's the problem, It's all right playing okay in every game, but at this stage of the season, where they are, it doesn't matter if you play like Brazil. If you lose the games, that's time up. You're in League One, so they need to get a result in this game if they have any hope. Obviously, the 6-point deduction has played into where they are, because if they didn't have the 6-point deduction, they would still be in the relegation zone, but they would have half a chance of survival. But I think lose this game in Sheffield Wednesday, you can almost put an R next to their name and say they're relegated, because I just can't see it. Huddersfield obviously picked up a few good results recently. Obviously got the win away at QPR at the weekend. They had some draws against Birmingham and Cardiff before that, so 5 from their last 9 available. So they're a little bit more in form, and I think they'll be in the Championship next season, and I think they'll secure that safety in the Championship next season with a win in this one. I think they'll win it. I'll go 2-1.
To Huddersfield?
Yeah, to Huddersfield, yeah.
Okay, I'm disagreeing. I think Sheffield Wednesday, I think they've got to win. They've got to win. Huddersfield maybe is that stage that they're thinking they're staying safe at the moment. So I think Sheffield Wednesday will be the ones that need to win. Obviously, they changed their manager a few weeks back, and they've looked better. They played really well against Norwich, and I think they will have the edge in this game. I'm going to go 2-0 Sheffield Wednesday. Elsewhere, on Wednesday night, we do have that London derby, QPR Millwall, but not much to play for there, is there?
No, it's pretty much a dead rubber, but obviously they're just playing for the pride of London in that regard. Obviously, always going to be a tasty one, a London derby. You know, Millwall are always up for that sort of game, and QPR will be also. So a big game, and arguably probably, you know, a meaningless one, but both will, you know, want to pick up the win and ahead of next season when they'll hopefully both be somewhere in the Championship where that game means something, because, you know, usually that's quite a tasty fixture.
This one is that no one's playing for anything, so they can go out and actually enjoy a derby. Sometimes some derbies you can just see that like are so tense because there's so much at stake for the games that you don't actually get a good game. But I think these teams, it's not their main rivals, so hopefully it'll just set up to be a good, entertaining game with QPR Millwall, nothing to play for, but the stake of being a better team in London, I think will make it a good one. But there's other games, of course, on Tuesday, Wednesday, but also on the weekend to preview. We just mentioned the Sheffield Wednesday, of course, Huddersfield. Then they go away to Barnsley. We had Mike on earlier last week talking about the two Yorkshire sides. Who do you see winning that, Adam?
Obviously, Barnsley are at home, so you'd be struggling to bet against Barnsley at home. As I said, Sheffield Wednesday were good yesterday, so if they can, you know, get a victory in that midweek game against Huddersfield, they're going to look at that game and think, you know, let's try and upset Barnsley. Let's try and ruin their promotion chances this season in the playoffs. Let's pull them out of the playoffs and let's try and push ourselves out of the Championship relegation zone. So we're both playing each other again next season. So I think a lot depends on the midweek results, in all honesty, but I just can't bet against Barnsley at the moment. I think, you know, picking up that win away at Bournemouth was incredible. So I'm going to go for 2-1 Barnsley, and I think that they'll be solidifying their place in the top 6.
Yeah, Barnsley are flying, aren't they? So you can't really look past them. Wickham, they played before Sheffield Wednesday, and I think you're going to see 2 wins for them this weekend. This week, I think, 2-0 Barnsley sounds a good prediction against Sheffield Wednesday.
And obviously, then the big one, the blockbuster game at the weekend. Obviously, I know a certain man who I'm speaking to right now is looking forward to this one. Are you nervous though, Chris? Are you nervous?
Yeah, again, not sure if I'm looking forward to it. It's massive. This is massive. It's just incredible that no team has ever won the South Wales derby. I just look into the stat constantly because I just don't get it. But it just shows what a big derby it is. You have all those mediocre derbies that everyone builds up to, and people say that's a big derby, and then you look into the history, and those teams, they don't really have big games. No team has ever won 2 games against each other in one season in the South Wales derby. It's incredible. It's incredible. And we have got an amazing opportunity to be the first team to do it. Obviously won at Cardiff earlier on in the season. Jamal Lowe, masterclass it was. And he's not been in form recently, but hopefully he can turn it around before Saturday's game. 5:30 kickoff. Oh boy, I am looking forward to it. Hopefully we can do it.
What are you predicting then, Chris?
Oh, well, I can't predict against Swansea, can I? Just guess it's how many goals we're going to win by. I think I'll go 2-0 again. 1-2-0 there, but win 2-0 at home. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Cardiff obviously been flying under Mick McCarthy, but did have their first defeat under him on the weekend, and had maybe the managerial impact effect gone now with a defeat. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, they play midweek before the game at home to Stoke. It obviously kind of depends on that. They might respond well, but if they don't, then it's all set up for a Swansea win there. It's going to be a big game. And there's many key players to draw out, but I think Connor Roberts, local boy, he's going to love it. He's going to love it. And I think if I remember back previously, Steve Cooper seemed to not play him against Cardiff. He played obviously earlier in the season, but last year he gave it the head up to Norton both times. And I felt he would have hated that as a Swansea lad. Would have wanted to be playing those games, but he is playing it now, and he's been unstoppable this season. running up that right wing, and I think he could have a massive impact in the game at the Liberty.
Yeah, well, I really can't call this game. I honestly think a lot depends on the midweeks. I really do. I think if Swansea lose to Bournemouth, they're going to be fired up even more for this game. I think if Swansea win that, obviously they'll have confidence. A lot depends also on that Cardiff result as well. So I kind of looked at the poll we put out on Twitter. So I put out a poll this morning. Before we recorded this podcast, Cardiff City was storming this. Then Mr. Chris Durkin decided he's going to tweet it out. And it might have swayed this. So as we sit here, Swansea, 44% of you think Swansea are going to win this game. 19% of you think this is going to be a draw. And 37% of you think the Bluebirds of Cardiff are going to win.
Well, I thought I had to get it out because when we started the pod, we only put it out a few hours before, and I think just our listeners were probably just having a laugh when they were selecting Cardiff, because I don't know what state of mind they were going through when they were putting Cardiff down. So I thought, let's get it out to the Swansea fans as well. Retweeted it, and we've got some sense in the voters now. Finally, it's in our favour, and it just shows our listeners, they know it's not about me, but my biased opinion has been supported by the listeners. 44% chance people think we're going to win, and we're going to win. We're going to prove them right, Adam.
I don't think so. I'm actually going to play devil's advocate here. I'm actually going to back Cardiff in this because I think that statistic of the South Wales derby is going to continue. And I think Cardiff are going to win this game 2-1. And yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 Cardiff in this game.
We'll wait and see. I guess Together Stronger for the rugby at 8 o'clock after the South Wales derby. Got on for the Grand Slam. But it is a championship podcast. There are other games on the weekend. Watford versus Birmingham, key both ends of the table. Can you see Birmingham forcing a victory against Watford?
Not really. I think Watford's home form is the best in the division by some mile. Birmingham, their away form's better than their home form, but I just can't see. I mean, actually, I think Birmingham were actually very good against Watford in the reverse fixture earlier in the season. I think Watford got very lucky. They got a penalty, which actually decided the game by Troy Deeney. But yeah, I mean, Watford recently, I actually looked at the reverse fixtures of all these games for these sides and how many, based on how many games they've got left. I looked at the reverse fixtures. So Norwich City, if you look at the reverse fixtures, in the last 10 games they played against the same opposition, got 17 points. Watford got 18 from the same 10 reverse fixtures. Swansea got 22 from the same reverse 11 fixtures. Brentford got 21 from the same 11 reverse fixtures. So obviously that would mean that Norwich and Swansea would be the top two this season, and Watford and Brentford would both be level on points with 87 in behind in third and fourth. So if Watford want to try and push for that top two place, they need to win this game because they need to maintain that run, but also add some extra points on here and there. So, yeah, I'm gonna back Watford to win it. But
good stats there. In your analysis of the results, did Watford win the game before against Birmingham?
Yeah, 1-0. Watford won the reverse. So
that's good knowledge there. How long did it take you to find that one out?
That was a little bit of a work in progress. I mean, Norwich was quite easy because obviously I already knew all the results, so it was just a case of jogging the memory. But the others obviously all involved me writing down how many points they got in the reverse games, and I did actually look at the points per game stat as well, which is arguably more accurate over the course of the season. And Norwich averaging 2.19 points per game, Watford 1.92, Swansea 1.97, and Brentford 1.89. So that would still indicate Swansea and Norwich going to be the top two. So Watford are going to want to go against that stat and prove that they are the second best team in this division. So they need to win this.
And that's why we have Adam on the podcast, reminding me why Swansea City are getting promoted. The stats are in our favour. It's a massive game on the weekend against Cardiff. We hope you enjoyed the podcast this week, guys, and hopefully we're going to have a few guests on in terms of the international break next week. We're looking forward to that and looking forward to reviewing the big South Wales derby after becoming the first Welsh team to win the double next Monday. Hope you tune in for that one. Adam, anything more to add?
Yep. So obviously we're all still on the same platforms we usually are. So at Champ Crowd Pod on Twitter. We are obviously on Apple Podcasts. Google Podcasts, Spotify, Champ Crowd Pod, and WD Sports YouTube as well. So go and watch us on there if you prefer us in a visual format. Obviously, all the usual jazz. So yeah, but other than that, I hope everyone has a really good week. And hopefully Norwich City are also picking up another 6 points and extend that run to 10 straight wins. And it'd be quite nice to see Cardiff pick up a victory on Saturday, wouldn't it? Just so we can have some banter on this podcast next week.
I can confirm there will be no podcast if Cardiff win next week. Now, I will be here. Come on, you Swans.